Hello and welcome to this week's RTÉ Soccer Podcast. I am Raf Diallo, and first off, an apology for last week and the technical issues we had on this segment last week. Hopefully will not happen again until obviously the next time, because this is how life works. Something will always go wrong at some point. But anyway, we're getting much closer to Prague. So later on this podcast, we are going to be talking about the Ireland squad, what to expect. There could be a few surprises coming in. The squad itself is going to be named on Thursday at 11:30, and then Heimir will have his press conference afterwards, and I will be heading along to that. And to discuss that right now, we have got Richie, Towell and Paul Corry. Lads, how are you?
Very well, Raf.
Oh, good, Raf.
Yeah, how are you looking to St. Patrick's Day as well? Have you got anything planned?
Well, I was due to be away last week, but with what's going on in the Middle East, we had to cancel our plans. So took a few days off work, rest up, watch plenty of football, and the countdown's really on for Prague at this moment. Yeah,
very much so. And on Friday, just to mention as well, I'll be speaking to a Czech journalist, something we always do, find out a little bit more about the opposition. So Friday, we'll put that out on the podcast as well. And Richie, you know Prague. Now, unfortunately, your experience has been at the other stadium against Sparta Prague, so you don't know much about the Fortuna Arena, but you can probably say at least the city itself is quite nice, and the little bits that you would have seen anyway.
Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. Never want to go back to the Sparta Prague Stadium ever again. We played obviously down there, top side. So hopefully Irish opposition get a little bit of a better result than we did when we went over.
Yeah, and Troy Parrott, of course, is playing there this week on Thursday in the Europa League, because they are drawn. AZ Alkmaar drawn against Sparta Prague at the moment. But before we talk about the squad, there is a player who has switched allegiance, and this is Harvey Vale. And just as someone who does support Chelsea, he does play for QPR at the moment, but he is somebody that would have come through the Chelsea system.
Yeah, and a very fruitful Chelsea system. Like, they've produced a huge number of players over the last number of years, maybe not all playing directly with Chelsea, and Harvey Vale is an example of somebody who's had to go away, but he featured quite prominently when Thomas Tuchel was there. Raf, he's a left-footed, attacking-minded player. Anytime I remember him playing for Chelsea, he was as a wide left or playing off a front man. Obviously very difficult to break into the Premier League, so he's had to go away. He's maybe not somebody who I would expect to see in the next couple of squads, but if he continues to perform at QPR, scored on the weekend, if he was able to kind of reproduce that sort of form and continue to improve, maybe somebody that you could see being involved in future squads. So great to have a couple of options. It's hard to put a measure on how much impact he's going to have on Ireland at this moment in time, but great to see, that there's an appetite for players to declare for Ireland and want to play for the country.
Yeah, now the squad itself, the one we're going to expect, so there's a few players who are definitely out. Evan Ferguson completely ruled out. Josh Cullen we've known for a while, Mikey Johnston as well. Liam Scales and Festy Abasele are suspended for the Prague game at least, but they would come back into contention if we were to advance to what would be a final, although there's still a friendly on the 31st in any case, regardless, depending on how next Thursday goes in Prague. And among the borderline players, Gavin Bazunu, Adam Ida, Will Smallbone, Boston Lowell, and to a lesser extent Seamus Coleman as well, who hasn't really been playing at all. But Paul, just looking at the borderline cases, do you look at maybe taking a player who is fully fit and in good form but hasn't really been part of the squad in recent times, or do you go for the more experienced, more established players even if they are semi-fit, let's just say?
Yeah, it's a tough one, Raf, isn't it? Because there's a couple of players there who have done particularly well for Ireland. If you think to Tredozo Ogbene, who hasn't played a lot of club football in recent times, he has to be included. He's somebody who could potentially start the game in Prague. Whereas maybe there's other players who aren't featuring and who haven't played for Ireland that maybe are kind of on the ledge there about whether or not they get into the squad. The likes of an Alan Brown are certainly knocking on the door. He's been doing particularly well in the Championship. He's maybe somebody who gets into the squad. But I think by and large for Heimir, continuity is really important. We're just coming off the back of our most successful window in a long period of time. I think you want to include the same players as much as you can within the next squad. You want to kind of take that feel-good factor of the Hungary game and the Portugal game into the playoffs. And you don't want to be, I guess, trying to teach people into your system or trying to showcase what it is you expect from different positions in and out of possession of the ball. So Heimir will really want to keep as many players from the last squad as possible in this next window. But it's going to be the same setup. We're not blessed with a huge amount of strength and depth. You would expect that the majority of players who played against Portugal and Hungary will play again in Prague. But there's a couple of really important positions there that we need to make sure we don't pick up any more knocks. If Troy Parrott was to pick up a knock in that next game for AZ Alkmaar, there would be panic stations everywhere. The centre halves, I know Nathan Collins has been in and out of the Brentford team, but himself, Jake O'Brien, Darrell O'Shea, these types of players, you just hope get through the last couple of games for their clubs injury free, and we can kind of keep as much, as I said, continuity from the last window into this game against Czechia.
Yeah, and Richie Wood and Alan Brown, is that a no-brainer given his form? He hasn't been in a squad, I think, since September 2024 in that Nations League window at the time, but given how well he's playing for Middlesbrough himself, maybe a Jamie McGrath who's doing really well at Hibs, would you be sort of like they have to be on board given they have some sort of momentum at club level?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd most definitely have them, especially an Alan Brown. I love the way Alan Brown plays the game. He's real high energy, gives absolutely everything for club and country. So for someone like him to come into it, I think is a no-brainer, especially as you said, Raf, he's in such good form. Middlesbrough are flying high at the moment in the Championship. So to add someone like him into the squad, I know we spoke about the likes of a Vale or someone like that, but for me, Alan Brown would be a much better choice than the likes of him.
The name that keeps popping up is Dave McGoldrick.
Yeah, I was just coming to him, yeah.
Like this is the name. And that's maybe somebody you could see coming in because he's scoring so many goals. And Alan Brown and Dave McGoldrick are very comfortable around international setups. They're very comfortable with international football. So you're not throwing them into something that's going to be very foreign to them. If I think about other, sort of 4 players who are in good form, Jack Moylan is probably another name that springs to mind. Like he's been doing incredibly well at Lincoln. That would feel like a big step and a big jump for Jack to be thrown into this window just with the magnitude of the game. I think I'd probably lean slightly more in favour of David McGoldrick just because he knows the lay of the land. He's played big games for Ireland before. So that sort of decision is maybe one that's going to require a bit of thinking time for Heimir.
Yeah, now David McGoldrick on Friday, he won the League One Player of the Month. He's been in brilliant form. I think 8 goals in 10 games before he won that award, 13 goals all season. He is 38 years old now. In fairness, when he was still a much younger man, but he's still in his 30s, you played against him for when you were with Rotherham and he was at Sheffield United at the time when he would have been in and around Ireland squads. Like, are you at the moment, sort of the mind of go for him? He's a wild card. And maybe even if he doesn't actually come onto the pitch, but that he brings something to the table behind the scenes.
I genuinely think he's an easy choice to put into the squad, purely because the form that he's in and then his experience. As Paul said, he's not going to be phased whatsoever. You could put a younger player in and the occasion might get to them. If you put David McGoldrick into the squad, it'd be no problem. But even if you put him onto the pitch at any stage, he's going to be nice and calm and he's going to lead by example. He's been doing that at Barnsley. There's a reason why Conor Hourihane has signed him at Barnsley. David McGoldrick is 4 years older than Conor Hourihane, and he signed the player of that experience. He must be great around the dressing room for a manager to have that sort of confidence to bring a player in. Some managers might look at that and think he could undermine me a little bit with being the more experienced player. David McGoldrick has played at a lot of a higher level of Conor, probably more times appearances for Ireland as well. So for him to bring someone like David McGoldrick in, it probably show the type of character he is as well. So I think that's a no-brainer to bring someone like him in, Raf.
Yeah, and Stephen Kenny, as we turn to the League of Ireland, of course, as well, for people listening to this as well, there are matches tonight, so a lot of the picture will change, but we're going to talk about the Friday games anyway. But Stephen Kenny, who's coming off a 4-1 win for Pats over Drogheda on Friday, he was speaking about David McGoldrick, who he has a lot of time for, and he said, and he was telling Neil Reardon in The Sun last week, David invited me over to Notts County when I finished working with Ireland. He was a player, but also a club ambassador, and I went over and met him. We were exchanging messages only a couple of months ago. He said he was out of cold storage, and I suppose switching Stephen Kenny at the moment, you know him quite well from your time at Dundalk. What's his kind of relationship like with players? Because clearly you see the sort of rapport he has with David McGoldrick, it seems really nice. It's almost like a friendly thing. Is he more of like a father figure, say to yourself, or do you look at him more almost like a sort of long lost friend kind of thing?
Yeah, do you know what? Stephen was incredible for me. I was a little bit lost in my footballing journey when I linked up with Stephen, and he was, like as you said, he's a little bit like that father figure. He used to really put his arm around me, and there'd be times where I'd come off the pitch and I'd be so frustrated. I'd probably after scoring a goal, but I'd be still so frustrated with myself, and he was that person that used to put his arm around me and make me feel good. I think Stephen, that's what he's doing now with the Pat squad. You can see, I feel Pats are a real momentum team, a real confidence team, and when you have a manager that instills confidence in you, it's a recipe for good things. You can see the last 3 or 4 games, Raf, they've really built a lot of momentum and they've really built a lot of confidence. And that was something Stephen done with our Dundalk side. For me especially, I can't thank him enough. I can't. As I said, I was really lost in my footballing journey, and he was the player who took me to levels that I never thought I possibly could. Like,
Yeah, do you still cross paths with them from time to time, or even like texts here and there?
yeah. So I was only when I was on holiday. Yeah, my wife was actually giving out to me because I was on the phone to him probably a bit too much. I met him for a coffee just before Christmas as well. So yeah, look, I still keep in contact with him. He does be in contact with me now that I finished playing and asked me about certain players and my opinion and stuff like that. So yeah, I still hold Stephen in really high regard.
Yeah, I was talking to Stephen at the League of Ireland launch, and this was after, I think it was the day after they had just confirmed Ryan Edmondson was signing for them, and I think I was asking more about Max Mata and how do you fill the Mason Melia void. But now we've seen Edmondson really get off the mark in the last couple of games and scored again. The equaliser against Drogheda. We're sort of getting to know him very, very well, and that pipeline with James Brown seems to be, flowing very, very nicely.
Yeah, James Brown's done very well since he's come in, Raf. Just a bundle of energy down that right-hand side, and he was very pivotal in some of those goals on Friday evening. So he's definitely an outlet, and when you think back to some of the teams that Richie would have played with, and then the Dundalk team under Stephen Kenny, it was always energetic, fullbacks, Dane Massey, Sean Gannon. So James Brown certainly fits that mould, and particularly when you think of the fact that they lost a number of goals from their team from last year. It was important that Mata, Edmondson and Keena hit the ground running and got to have a feel of hitting the back of the net early on. So that's a bonus for Stephen Kenny. Even the likes of Levy coughing up with a couple of goals, like that last minute winner against Galway. He's got brilliant energy. He's able to get himself into promising positions. He hasn't always capitalised on that. So him hitting the back of the net and finding that rhythm is vitally important. So yeah, Edmondson is a big one. If you can get him fit and you can get him, finding a bit of form, that is the type of player that maybe you can build your side around. But Pats, and to Richie's point, they are a momentum side. And Stephen Kenny's sides tend to be, when they're free-flowing and going forward, they're really dangerous. They're really difficult to defend, and they score plenty of goals. It's just when the tide maybe isn't in their favour, I have still a couple of question marks, and I've just a little bit of a worry about them, that maybe when the momentum swings, they're not quite as sturdy as maybe some of the other sides up there. But the signs are good. Keeping Sean Hoare and Redmond fit, I think, is going to be vitally important.
Yeah, and Hoare, particularly at set pieces as well, just noticed in a lot of those games, he's the one making that front post run as well and getting on the end of things.
Well, he's aggressive.
Yeah.
Spring is ridiculous as well. He has this spring that he can just, and like as Paul said, he's really aggressive as well. And Paul's right. He was missing for nearly the whole of the season last year, Raf, and that really hurt St. Pat's. St. Pat's kind of put a lot of their eggs in one basket with signing him, thinking that he was going to build a relationship with Joe Redmond. I've been really impressed with Turner as well since the start of the season. I know we had some off the field issues last year, which was unfortunate for him. But them three have built up such a great relationship, and that's a recipe for good things going forward for Pats.
I think with Sean Hoare, what he brings to that side is that aggression, but you need a bit of nastiness in your side as well. Like, sometimes Pats are great to watch and they're a nice team on the eye, but maybe lack that sort of backbone. And when you take maybe Jamie Lennon and Sean Hoare out of the side, they maybe don't have that same sort of aggression that is needed to get yourselves over the line. So he certainly brings that, and I think that probably rubs off on players around him as well. It's a nice little balance because Joe Redmond is so good on the ball. He's very good at covering the ground. If you have Sean Hoare there, I'm probably not doing him any favours here saying he's an aggressive player, because he's very good on the ball himself, but I just think he brings that aggression that's sometimes missing with Pats.
Yeah, and then the momentum swings as well, as you're talking about. Pats are a momentum team, but actually within the game itself, it's a tale of two penalties in a certain sense, and one team falls apart after Mark Doyle misses for Drogheda, but on the other end, Aidan Keena buries it, and the game sort of changes from there.
Yeah, it does. And Pats, in fairness to them, have done that well in recent weeks, Raf. Like, I was probably a little bit worried. They'd no goals in their opening two games. They had a pretty lacklustre finish to last season. You're wondering, is that going to carry into this year? It swung very quickly, and of course you need a bit of luck, and the situation where Drogheda missed a penalty the other night definitely goes in their favour. But there's just a bit of a good feel around Pats at this moment in time. There's a huge amount of games over the course of April and May. You need to be bringing momentum and form into that period of the season, because the games come thick and fast. And with Stephen Kenny's sides, like, when that energy is about the squad, you can almost feel that confidence. If you recall, not last year, but the year before that, when they were in Europe and then they went on that unbelievable run towards the end of the season, that's the type of form you need to bring into those April and May fixtures.
Yeah, and one thing Stephen does like, and you yourself having played in his teams, he loves wingers and players, I suppose players who go at people. And I suppose when he first went into the Ireland squad, initially there wasn't, those options weren't really there. It was later on when the likes of Benny and Mikey Johnston would have come in later, it changed. Something Thierry Henry was talking about was the lack lack of wingers generally, and he's talking more about the Premier League, and that there's not too many examples of players who go at opposition as much. I think Barcelona's Lamine Yamal was one he kind of cited as one of the very few who actually does do that. The League of Ireland's very different in that there seems to be, and this is David Sneyd had a good piece in the 42 about this, where there's a lot of players that get people off their seats in our league, and we are kind of lucky in that sense.
Absolutely, and I think with having been at the Pats game on Friday, watching Cian Levy, I don't think there's a player in the league that travels as well with the ball at his feet as him. Like, it's crazy. You see him running at full pelt. He picks up the ball and he seems to run even faster than he does, and the ball stuck to him, which is brilliant to see. You obviously have Adam Brennan at Shamrock Rovers again. He's another one that gets the ball at his feet and starts dribbling, and people, like as you said, Raf, bums start to come off the seats, and people are getting their heads up thinking, what's he going to do here? I think one of the reasons why that winger has kind of gone out of the game is because so many teams are going to a 3. Realistically, it's a 5 at the back, and that's what's killing the more creative players, because let's be realistic, you have to have that defensive side of the game as well. So I think that's what's haunting some wingers at this stage too.
Yeah, and it's also, I suppose, possession is a kind of premium now as well, where managers maybe they don't want you losing the ball, and the risk takers then are sort of neutralised in a certain sense.
Yeah, I think it's about finding balance, Raf. I think you can have too many technical players in a team without having that sort of outlet at the top end of the pitch. Adam Brennan has just done remarkably well for Shamrock Rovers, and speaking to a couple of people up there in the club, they are very impressed with the impact that he's had, but just what he's brought to that Shamrock Rovers side. It works so well for them because they've got the likes of Graham Burke, Dylan Watts, Jack Byrne. They want to come towards the ball. You have to have somebody who's willing to run in behind, and he does that very well. Those types of players are rare, and maybe they're more difficult to find, but I think what you will see is when somebody hits the ground run, has the impact like an Adam Brennan, he's not going to be around for too long. Because it's so rare, Raf, some team in the UK will look at him and say 18 years of age, has a lot of attributes that can be very dangerous and very difficult to play against. We'll take a chance on him. We'll try mould him into the player that we need to fit into our system. So he's maybe not somebody who will stick around for too long. Neil Ferrugia got to move, very physical, very quick. Chidoze played in the league here. Adam Murphy was at St. Pat's, very explosive player. They don't tend to stay around for too long because they're so rare. But there's certainly a number of players in the league right now who do get you off the edge of your seat. And Richie mentioned Levy and Brennan are probably two that are really standing out.
Yeah, and then I suppose in terms of the goals in the Derry City Shelbourne game, Shelbourne winning 2-1 away. The first two brilliant strikes from distance, but again, their players have been imported into the league. Jack Henry Francis and then Henry Ryla then equalising for Derry City. Yeah,
I think for Shells to get Jack Henry Francis back fit, that's going to be a really big one. They've been a little bit hit and miss so far this season. I think if you have the likes of him and a Kerr McEnroy at the base of your midfield, I think that's a building block for a really successful team. His strike was incredible for the first one, as you said. Henry Ryla.
Yeah.
His strike for Derry's first one was really good. I'm really struggling to see where Derry's going to get out with this rut that they're in. Raf, that's to be honest.
Unless people who are listening to it after tonight's games,
I know.
Maybe something has changed by then.
Hindsight can be a great thing, but we're in a a results-based industry. We are. That's a fact. But it's performances. For me, performances always come before results, because if the performances are there, the results will come. That's a fact. It is. And I just think Derry City's performance have been so underwhelming. It's scary. We were all ranting and raving about the squad that Tiernan Lynch was after building up there. Not just the attacking prowess of the likes of a James Clark, but the nitty and gritty with signing the two McLeans as well. But I don't see any creativity on that Derry side, and I don't see any of the nitty gritty either. I still am unsure of what type of a team they are, whether they're a possession-based team, whether they're a team in a low block. They have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, and then Dan Kelly's goal, that won't be threatening any Pushcast awards, I think. But is it kind of symptomatic of the disjointedness of Derry City, particularly at the back?
Yeah, like I kind of feel for Fleming in that situation. He's trying to get himself out of the way, and it's hit his standing leg, and that probably sums up the look that Derry are having at this moment in time. But I agree with Richie, like, Derry have conceded first in all 6 games that they've played this year. Like, they're giving themselves a mountain to climb in some of these games. And in some instances, they've done quite well, and they've shown a bit of character to wrestle their way back into situations, and they've gotten a point here or there. But there's question marks kind of throughout the team. Tiernan Lynch changed formation. That's a telltale sign that he's searching for something, that it's not quite happening. And particularly when you look at the back four that Shells ended up with the other night. I mean, they're missing Oren Casey, missing Paddy Barrett. Sam Bowen had to go off. They didn't really cause too many problems.
Shells looked like they were going to go and score the next goal.
Exactly that. And there's then question marks at both ends of the pitch. Now, the one thing that I will say, like we were speaking about St. Pat's there and the shift that they've had in the last couple of weeks, it can change very quickly. You know, a couple of results here or there and Derry could get going and maybe they head into that period of games I was talking around April, May, where they find a bit of momentum and you can find yourself kind of climbing the league table. But right now, it doesn't scream that they're going to find that bit of form. There just doesn't seem, the balance doesn't seem to be right. And I keep going back to James McLean. That's not because of James, but James in the middle of the park doesn't work. Like, for his whole career, he's played as a wide man. He's had the touchline behind him, and what that gives you, Raf, is security when you receive the ball. You know, you're going forward or you're going back inside. When you put somebody into the middle of the pitch, that's such a difficult transition to make, where you're checking your shoulders at all times, and the balance hasn't quite felt right. And I think it stems from the centre of the park. You got to get that right. You got to be more difficult to play against, stop conceding as many goals, and then hope the likes of a Duffy, a Clark, or some of your forward players can get you goals. But it's about getting back to basics right now for Derry.
Can he put him back to wing back now after playing so long in midfield and kind of building him up as he's my midfielder?
I don't know, because Fleming is probably one of the best left backs in the league, which is another sort of conundrum that Lynch has if he puts him there. I would be inclined to put James. I don't think he's somebody you can drop just with
I know. I think he should be playing wing back.
Yeah, I would
think he would do great. But a big concern for me, Raf, was the boos at the end of the game.
Yeah.
That's like, we're only 6 games in now,
and it's not even the first time. There's been a smattering before
I think
already.
That's the second or third time now, and it's not. Sometimes you can get a small portion of the crowd. You're always going to get that. Football fans, someone's not going to be happy. That was a large chunk of the Brandywell that were booing, and that's a bit concerning for me. Like, yeah,
and then there was the Battle of the Rovers as well on Friday night, and Shamrock, as English commentators like to call them, as we know through their European journeys in recent times, beat Sligo 2-0, and Matt Healy and Danny Grant with the goals just before half time. Now there's a Pico Lopez who was eventually sent off. We might talk about maybe if that should have happened a little bit earlier, but before that, much changed team. And Stephen Bradley, speaking afterwards to Virgin Media, he did say that, you know, on a Friday, Monday, generally they will change the team a fair bit itself. But is it tricky from your own experience, Richie, coming into, you know, a much changed team?
Of course it is. Like, as we're saying about a St. Pat's, I think momentum is big. For me, when I played, I just wanted to play Friday, Monday, and you'd have a manager that would be thinking really long term. Like, I know Stephen Bradley, he's not even thinking about a game in a week or two's time. He's thinking about May, June, when Europe comes around. That's how far Stephen thinks ahead. He's very meticulous in what he does, and you can see, like, sometimes he'll drop Graham Burke, Jack Bourne and Brennan in the one game, and you're thinking, it's not a drop, it's they're giving the lads a rest, they're rotating the squad. I think what Shamrock Rovers are very, very lucky that they have got such a big squad and such a good squad that they can afford to do that, Raf. No matter who goes in, they know exactly what they should be doing. Stephen is religious with the work that he does on the training ground, and you can see it rubbing off on all the lads. As soon as somebody steps onto the pitch, they know exactly what they should be doing and where they should be. And that's why they've been so successful over the last couple of years. Yeah,
when you have the depth where you can bring in Aaron Green, who I think when you're talking about Stephen Bradley being religious, but you've got the father and the son, because he has a young lad as well within the youth team as well.
Jack I think they played in a pre-season friendly or maybe one of the League Cup games.
I think it's against Longford Town.
Which is great. Yeah. And look, Aaron Green, someone who I played with, he's after having an incredible career, and not just that, Raf, he's a real leader. He's not someone who goes and rants and raves and screams on the pitch or screams in the dressing room, but he leads by example. What he does in the gym, he comes in early, how he lives his life, and what he does on the training ground, and then obviously what he's done on the pitch has been there for everyone to see. Yeah,
and then Shamrock Rovers, in terms of the pressure, was building before their first goal anyway. Matt Healy sort of gets it, but just afterwards, when it's 1-0 and there's a potential for Sligo Rovers to come back into it, there's a flashpoint with Pico Lopez where potentially, do you look at that as it should have been a second yellow?
Yeah, it's a hard one, isn't it, Raf? Maybe because of Pico and his reputation, maybe he gets away with it. Maybe another referee will send Pico off. But there are certainly moments that you need to go in your favour. And Shamrock Rovers have found it very difficult going to Sligo. You're probably part of some of those squads where haven't won as many games as you may have expected in the showgrounds, and that's a moment that you go back to where maybe if you get that decision, Sligo go on and they get a point. But Shamrock Rovers, I thought, were very professional in getting the job done. And you've spoken about Pico there as a centre half. I think the more I watch Shamrock Rovers, the more impressed I am with Corry O'Sullivan. And he's maybe not the one that grabs the headlines, because you've got the likes of Ozimvuna and you've got Michael Noonan and Brennan and these attacking players who are brilliant to watch, and they do something spectacular, and we're talking about them for the next couple of weeks. Corry O'Sullivan has quietly gone about becoming one of the most important players in that back three. Like, league race hasn't started a huge amount of games this year, and of course that's with Europe and it's with the games to come, but I think it's also to do with the fact that Corry his game has improved so much over the last while. I would have looked at him maybe 12 months ago and thought he looked very slight as a centre half. Maybe you could bully him a bit. He's certainly, physically improved his game, but left-footed on the ball, his distribution has been excellent. I think his 1v1 defending has been superb. Tenacious. And Pico being sent off, maybe the loss of him in one of those games isn't felt as much because the likes of Corry and anybody else who stepped into that position has done very well. So maybe one to keep an eye on. Like Matt Healy obviously got the goal. It's been excellent in the middle of the park, but Corry's somebody who I think has maybe flown under the radar with just the strides that he's made. Yeah,
when you talk about defending from the Sligo point of view, then they had numbers back actually for both those goals. I think counted 7 for the Matt Healy one, but it's a numbers game in some ways, but good defending isn't really about that either.
Yeah, and listen, Shamrock Rovers can cause you problems. I know one of them was maybe the first one was from like a set piece, or the ball's being recycled. Yeah. Sligo have a lot of young players in their squad. They almost remind me, anytime I've seen them this year, of the UCD team that I played in, where they'll be brilliant in spells. I thought they were excellent up in Derry on the opening night of the season, but will probably let you down with maybe some of the individual errors or the mistakes, or maybe not being tenacious around their own box. That's probably how their season will pan out, and you identify those situations for the Healy goal where you could say, if we're a little bit more aggressive, you put bodies in front of the ball, maybe we don't concede that goal. But I wouldn't want to be too critical, because I know John Russell is got a difficult sort of hand there that to be played. They tend to lose their best players. He's constantly trying to reshuffle the pack.
Yeah, and in fairness to him, he always gets them out of trouble eventually. Once he identifies what the issue is.
And I don't think kind of as we head into the second half of the season, I'm not sure they'll be down there with, I would expect, maybe Waterford and Galway. I think they'll be able to separate themselves a little bit from that pack.
Yeah, Waterford, speaking of them, they lost 5-0 at Dundalk, and when we talk about defending, that's an issue that carried over from last season. Probably no surprise then we're hearing that Kevin Long, who's of course been capped 17 times for Ireland, is returning to the League of Ireland after many years away at the highest level and coming back in.
It's a great coup for Waterford. I couldn't believe it when I seen it this morning that he was after going there. I think if Kevin has watched Waterford at any stage this season, I think he'll know he's going to be in for a long evening every single time he plays. And that's every time I watch Waterford, the amount of goals they concede is ridiculous. I really questioned their heart and their character when they played against Dundalk on Friday night. That's probably why John Daly has gone out and got someone so experienced like Kevin. As you said, Raf, he's been there at the highest level and he's done it, played for Ireland, done great. Can he come in and be the person to change it all around the Waterford? I'm not so sure. Obviously, to have his experience at the back and Padraig Gammon's experience up front, that's going to be great for Waterford, but it's the thing in between that really worries me about Waterford. I think they're really, really soft, and to go up to Oriel Park and concede 5 goals is not good enough.
Yeah, it doesn't really come down to one player in a sense, but that experience and I suppose the know-how he has could make a bit of a difference.
Yeah, it feels like with Waterford, they really went all in on having attacking players and scoring enough goals. You know, Carty, Lonergan, Padraig Gammon, even bringing in McLaughlin and Noonan. They're great players going forward, but to Richie's point, like, they've conceded an awful lot of goals. It's not a great look when you go to a newly promoted team and you get done for 5. So Long is definitely going to have to come in there. There is a lot of young centre halves in Waterford as well. Maybe it needs an experienced body just amongst them to organise them, put them into different positions and try shut out the opposition. And kind of like when I spoke about Sean Hoare, what Long will bring is a presence and a physical presence in order to kind of put your head on things, clear things, do the basics really well. So he's at the tail end of his career. You hope that he's fit enough to kind of get through games, but certainly in addition to the squad and a much needed one.
Yeah, and from a Dundalk point of view, Daryl Horgan, your old mate, who was on the podcast, I think this time last year with us as well. We had a great chat with him.
Him and his 20 kids that he couldn't get away from.
Yeah, but like he obviously scored a goal in the game, but a couple of assists beforehand. I get the impression he's the type of player where, he takes as much pleasure, and this is like the anti-Cristiano Ronaldo in a sense. The gospel according to Cristiano Ronaldo is you look after yourself first, and then maybe an assist or two elsewhere to your teammates. But the Daryl Horgan takes as much pleasure out of, feeding his teammates as he does maybe nicking one as well.
Horgan is incredible. He is a really, really good player, but a really, really good teammate as well. It's no surprise that he's the captain of the football club up there. Kieran Kilduff has put a lot of faith in him, and I think Daryl has been incredible this season. He reminds me of Daryl 8 to 10 years ago. That's how good I think he's been. He got a goal and 2 assists on Friday night. I think that's his 4th or 5th assist so far this season. That's really, really impressive, Raf, especially in a newly promoted team. If Dundalk are to stay up, which I think they will, I think a lot of it will be down to him.
Yeah, and obviously best wishes to Connor Kearns as well, because he sustained a serious knee injury.
Do you know what? I meant to say that as well. Yeah. I know Connor quite well. He does a bit of goalkeeping coaching up in Temple. Really, really good fella. Had a really, really strong start to the season. He's going to be a really big miss for him, yes.
Yeah, because it was, I think it took about 17 minutes, and that's the injury time that was given as well, and he will require surgery on it. Kilduff said it was a substantial injury, so anyway, he will be facing a long spell on the sideline, so hopefully, good luck to him as well in terms of his recovery, first and foremost. Bowes also is the other game, beating Galway United 1-0, and Patrick Hickey going back to haunt Galway at that point of view. Now, we've talked a lot about him, Paul, in terms of that transition he's made from playing just off a striker to going at centre half and almost looking at home. Have you seen too many players in your own time? And I mean, that does that kind of Gary Doherty thing of being able to play at both ends.
I could have got a few more years out if I've gone from attacking midfield if I went centre half.
Yeah, but is it something that you've have you seen too much of it? It's not unheard of, but it's also quite rare at the same time.
Yeah, I would have played with a couple of players who maybe started in the middle of the pitch and then maybe gravitated more back towards like a right full position. There was Liam Palmer, who's still going on Sheffield Wednesday, who would have done that. Matt Doherty is one that stands out as well. Matt was a couple of months younger than me with a schoolboy club, and he would have played with us. He would have been naturally a centre midfielder and went back to a fullback, and obviously has garnered a career from it. I think the Hickey one is quite rare because last season he was like deployed just off the front man, getting on the end of things, scoring goals. To go from that end of the park back to a centre half is not an easy transition. No. Now he has the attributes, Raf, because of his physical presence and because he's so God. I keep talking about physical presence centre halves. You swear I was a dirty centre midfielder back in the day, but he has those sort of elements to his game that he's made it look seamless. Now, I think in order to do that, you have to be very switched on. You have to have a good understanding of the game, and you have to be able to mould yourself into that shape. What definitely helps is the fact that Todd has played a number of years within the League of Ireland as a centre half, and they seem to have struck up a really good relationship. And I think you can't speak about the two without also mention Traska in goals, because he's been superb for Bowes over the last couple of games. And it's extraordinary to think that the only 2 goals Bowes have conceded all year are the 2 in injury time against Shamrock Rovers. Like, that has been the foundation for their success this year. And Hickey gets on the end of a corner to get 3 points against Galway, Todd against Waterford. So you cannot underestimate the presence that they're bringing to Bowes at this moment in time, because last year would have been Town and Daily Mount to watch a lot of them. Some of the play from Bowes was really strong. Yeah, like, we've always had Dawson Devoy and Tierney and a couple of others kind of chipping in and really keen on the eye, but then they concede a sloppy goal at the back. These two have just been superb for them, and there was a couple of balls that went into the box after Bowes scored. And I remember in my playing days, conceding, whether it be long throws or corner kicks, and you're just praying that a centre half come and commands the area and sticks their head on it. Hickey and Todd do that a lot for Bowes, and it's really, really paying off for them. Yeah,
and Richie, similarly in your own time as well, have you seen too many who've done that, like where they look at home like in a back line, but also they can sort of lead a line, or at least very, very close to it?
No, I haven't seen it too much, to be honest, Raf. Obviously, look, when you see someone like Hickey and he's played in that position, I thought maybe initially at the start of the season he was just filling in a gap for a game or two. That's kind of what happens in them situations. But I think for someone to go back and be so consistent, like, he's been incredible since he's gone in there. As Paul said, the physical presence back there is really what Bohemians needed. I'm really impressed how him and Todd have struck up a good partnership straight away, because we obviously have spoke about Derry and the problems they've had. They have 2 new centre halves gone in up there, and you can see the turmoil that they're in, where you see the Bohemians 2 centre halves really calm, play the game absolutely brilliant. What's impressed me most, I think, from Bohemians, Raf, is the character that they're showing. They can win games in different ways now.
Yeah, because the stat actually interesting just on that, like last season, if we were to look against Galway United, they played them 4 times. They won twice, lost twice. Yeah. And the same record against Waterford as well. And then when they played Sligo, it was 2 draws and 2 wins. These weren't necessarily games that were gimmies for them last year, whereas like they beat Shamrock Rovers 3 times last year.
Absolutely. And I always feel that them big games, Bohemians can raise their levels no problem. It's when they're playing a Waterford or Dundalk this year, them type of teams, that the question marks would have been over them. But not now, because I'm seeing a different type of character within the squad that, no, do you know what, we can get to the nitty gritty and we can get over the line. And if they want to go and win a league or even challenge for a league, they're the types of wins that they're going to have to get this year.
Yeah, and I think even in terms of Alan Reynolds and just going back to Hickey, it speaks something of a manager where maybe he's scouting a certain player in a certain position, but he's thinking outside the box and he sees maybe a completely different role for someone.
Yeah, I think Hickey would have been a decent addition for most squads off the back of the season he had last year, purely on the basis he's a brilliant utility man. You can kind of put him into a number of different positions if you're kind of down a couple of bodies, but I'm not sure many would have looked at him and said, yeah, he's a centre half that we can take a punt on, and Reynolds and O'Donnell deserve a lot of credit for that. Like Bowes last year really felt the loss of Sean Grehan when he left. Like he was literally their main man as a centre half. He was really impressive for the time that he was there, and you could feel the absence when he left. So to get Hickey in and to get Todd in has really revamped Bowes. And if you're talking about kind of going on and being consistent and potentially challenging at the top end of the table, for me it's going to be clean sheets, Raf. You got to make sure that you're keeping clean sheets, drawing games that maybe Bowes have historically lost, and nicking wins like the one that you had against Galway. That was the recipe that got Shells over the line 2 years ago, and that's the one I think that Bowes need to really focus on.
You even think on the flip side of that, Paul, I think Cork City last year put all their eggs in the basket of attacking and scoring goals. I feel like Waterford have done the same this year. It's kind of backfiring. I think for me anyway, even at Shamrock Rovers, with all the attacking players that we always had, the back line was always the foundation. And you can see even now, Dan Cleary, Roberto Lopez, Lee Grace, you still have them core players that have been there for the last 4 or 5 years. It's so important that you get the back line sorted first before you go through the other 2 positions.
Yeah, and before we go, obviously Rachel Graham to come as well of Shelbourne to talk about the Women's Premier Division and also attendances in the league as well. But the Champions League, we have Liverpool against Galatasaray on RT2 and the RT Player from 7:30 on Wednesday. So this is the second leg. Liverpool trailing 1-0 after Mario Lemina scored early on in Istanbul. And Richie, looking at it from the English club's point of view, obviously there's a lot of hype around them, a lot of money in the Premier League, and yet potentially it might only be 2 that, or possibly even less. Obviously, Liverpool are chasing a deficit that actually come out into the quarterfinals.
Yeah, and especially I watched the Liverpool game last night. They were really poor. They were up against a Spurs team last night who are really, really struggling. Just conceded 5 goals, swapping and changing their goalkeepers. Romero was missing, Van Veen was missing. They were missing Yves Bissouma. You could go through the list, you could, and still their performance is very underwhelming. So, look, 1-0 down against Galatasaray at Anfield. I think Liverpool will take that all day. They'd be special nights at Anfield, so they'll be hoping for another one of them.
Yeah, and just speaking about Spurs and what happened last week, because it was just interesting. It's not even so much substituting the goalkeeper. That's one thing that Igor Tudor obviously did, 17 minutes. It's really bad for Anton Kinski in a sense, but at the same time, he was culpable for 2 goals. It's the not acknowledging him when he comes off. Like, what was your whole thoughts on that? Because there's 2 schools of thought. There's maybe the Roy Keane side of it, where there's no room for sentiment here. Just get on with it. There's no tears. But then on the other side as well, there's a kind of a human side, and I think there was the TNT sports commentator was making a point that I think it was it Jed Spence that came off the pitch. Now this happened off camera, and Tudor didn't really look in his direction either, and Spence came round and made a point of shaking the manager's hand. It smells of something. Obviously then they do get a result at Anfield, so maybe it's not something that lingered. Yeah,
it was a difficult watch last week.
Yeah,
when the keeper made 2 mistakes, and he is a keeper who likes to kind of spread the play with his distribution from his feet. But it's very rare, Raf, that you watch the last 16 of the Champions League and you see errors of that level. Like the first one you can maybe excuse a little bit because he's lost his footing. The second one was really inexcusable. But to take him off, I think Tudor could have waited to half time. Given the fact that he's made the decision, the lack of acknowledgement, I think, is really what got under people's skin. You know, it's so inhumane to even not go over and acknowledge that he's been through probably the worst 20 minutes of his career that he'll ever experience. It's a Champions League game. There's so many eyes on him. I think that the least you can do is put your arm around him and acknowledge the fact that it's been a very difficult night. The fact that he's given him the cold shoulder, I don't think went down well with anybody. You could even sense from the Atletico Madrid fans who were giving Kimski a round of applause as he went off the pitch was pretty much an acknowledgement how difficult it was. So, Tudor hasn't covered himself in glory in that situation. He hasn't covered himself in glory since he's gone into that job. The fact that he got a point last night maybe buys him a little bit of time. I think if he was beaten yesterday, he would have been gone.
Yeah, for sure. And one last thing from the last 16 as well, Bodo Glimt obviously in a great position to get to the quarterfinals. Their story has been really good. Obviously, there's often talk of trying to then say that should be an inspiration for League of Ireland clubs, but the Norwegian situation is completely different. I mean, there is a history of Norwegian, not getting to as far as Bodo Glimt are doing, and they're even a unique case of where they are, even geographically in Norway. But the gap between, say, Norwegian football and the League of Ireland, facility-wise and everything else, it's not the same planet almost.
Yeah, it's not. I think what you can take heart from here is the fact that you look at any other squad that is involved in the last 16 and Bodo Glimt, there's a massive drop off, you would imagine, from kind of salaries, investments, just general quality of player. But what they are is they're a really well drilled team. They've got a really clear understanding. They have a coach who knows exactly what he wants from his players. And that goes an awful long way in matches. Like, they are very disciplined out of possession and they are unbelievable in transitions and counterattacks. They've caused so many problems to Inter Milan, Atletico Madrid, Man City, and again then Sporting Lisbon last week. So that is almost like the type of team and the type of mold that you want to build your team around when you go into Europe. And actually, in fairness, I think Stephen Bradley and Shamrock Rovers, some teams that Richie were involved in, have done that incredibly well. You know, if you think of sitting in, being disciplined, I can recall like Neil Farouge and co causing teams, even Aaron Green running behind Rory Gaffney. So that's the blueprint for our teams to follow when you go into Europe. And it's more so that it gives you belief that it can be done. I still think Champions League is way off our own domestic teams, but that Conference League has become a really good springboard and a really good opportunity for teams to get into the group stages. You would imagine if Shell's got another bite at it this time, the experiences that they would help them get more points. And you always need a bit of luck in the draw. Like Bodo Glimt got Sporting Lisbon is probably the best draw that they could have had. Shamrock Rovers got a terrible draw in the Conference League last year, and it meant that they didn't get a lot of points. But there's definitely a blueprint there that you can do well in European competition, even against some of the perceived bigger boys.
Yeah, I suppose it's getting the basics right as well. I was at the FAI briefing last Tuesday where it's more about facilities and, trying to, even trying to bring money into the domestic and I suppose something that ties into the international game as well, and try and build things from the bottom up because we are so far behind. But I suppose Norway in a sense is a template. I imagine you've played against teams from sort of Scandinavia and that they're not going to threaten to win Champions Leagues or Europa Leagues. Well, I know Swedish clubs back at say in the 70s were quite strong, but in the modern era that's not going to necessarily happen. But it is an aspiration. They're the type of countries we should be aiming towards, even if it takes 20, 30 years.
Yeah, I see that 20, 30 years. I think that's how far we are behind. Yeah. I think if you go over to Iceland, Denmark, Norway, you'll see the infrastructure they have over there. I would say every couple of kilometres there's astroturfs upon astroturfs upon astroturfs that obviously the senior teams benefit from, hands down, but not just them, it's more so the kids that are growing up that are going to benefit from it because they're the potential future stars they are. I have a lot of kids that come into me that train in my academy, and I say to them, how did you get on at the weekend? Oh, I had no game. Why did you not have a game? Oh, I got called off because we couldn't get any time on the AstroTurf. We are so far behind with regards to facilities on AstroTurfs. It's incredible, it is. Look, I think Shamrock Rovers, Shelbourne, they have given us that springboard to look and think, oh, maybe it is doable, but Conference League is their limitations right now. Maybe Europa League at a push, like as Paul said, if we get a good draw. Champions League, Raf, for 20, 30 years before we can even consider getting a team anywhere near it, I think.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I suppose we always have to start somewhere. Next up, it's going to be Rachel Graham on the Women's Premier Division. But for now, Richie Towell and Paul Corry, thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Raf.
Cheers, Raf.
All right. You're very welcome back to the RTÉ Soccer Podcast. I'm delighted to be joined now by Rachel Graham of Shelbourne. The league is back. You were back in action as well. We'll talk about your game in a little while, but there's already one big result in the league, and that is last year's champions, your rivals, Athlone Town, who drew at Sligo Rovers. It would have caught a lot of people off guard, I suppose.
Yeah, I think so. And look, I think if you're looking at last year's result and last year's Sligo, that's seen as like, maybe a bad result for Athlone, or it's 2 points drop, but I think come the end of the season, I don't think teams are going to go there easily and pick up 3 points or even 1 point. I don't think it's as bad a result as probably what it seems. Sligo have made, a lot of changes. They seem to have really invested in 5 new starting players in their team, and some really impressive Americans. You had Cara Jackson on the wing, who she actually played with Ron McLaughlin and Amanda McQuillan in America, so they spoke highly of her. They know her really well. And another player in the middle, Sabrina Hillier, was really good. And then the centre forward then. Sydney Stevens up front, who caused a lot of trouble for Athlone, kind of big, strong centre forward. So I don't think it's probably as bad a result as what it might seem. Obviously last year you probably would have seen that as maybe 2 points drop, but I just don't think Sligo's going to be an easy place to go this year at all. Yeah,
is the disappointment more from an Athlone point of view the fact that they actually did go ahead, and perhaps based on last season they are very, very strong defensively normally?
Yeah, and look, I don't think it's anything to look at Athlone and say, oh look, they're miles off it, they're starting to show cracks. It's not a case of that. They had some really good play, and even the goal they conceded, I think they'll be really disappointed with. It was, I think the keeper thinks McNally's going to clear it and she misses it and it just creeps into the net.
Yeah, so they're one of those really awkward free kicks though, aren't they, where if somebody, the Emma Hansberry's basically looking for a touch, for somebody to give it a touch, and it will wrong foot the goalkeeper, but at the same time if nobody touches it, it's still awkward for the goalkeeper on the other side.
Yeah, it's one of them where it's kind of in between the keeper and defender, and it's an awkward one to defend with. But yeah, look, she is waiting. I think McNally, she misses it, to be fair, and then the keeper's just kind of caught wrong foot and it just creeps into the net. But look, Emma Hansberry's known for a good delivery, so probably should have been maybe on her toes to just think worst case scenario, but I think they'd be disappointed by how they conceded that goal. Yeah,
but even so, from a Sligo Rovers point of view, as you said, lots of good new players brought in, but it wasn't a smash and grab if you look at the chances beforehand also.
Yeah, it was a pretty even game. Look, I think probably Athlone towards the end of the game were pushing as if they were going to win it, but Sligo had a great chance then around the 85th minute. The Athlone keeper makes a great save to keep them out, so it wasn't a case as they were, holding out and settling for a draw, but Athlone probably did look a little bit stronger come the end. But like I said, I just don't think Sligo were going to be in any way a pushover of a team this year.
Yeah, and I suppose the encouraging thing for Athlone, Dana Sheriff has carried on from the President's Cup final and another goal as well.
Yeah, and look, that's, she kind of picked up where she left off when she was in the league in 2023. She was really impressive then, and if you look at Kelly Brady, who's gone to Crystal Palace, you think, God, that's a huge loss for Athlone. Top goal scorer, golden boot. I think they've replaced her with someone probably better than Kelly Brady. So, not ideal for us or any other team, but for the likes of Athlone to be able to replace her with Dana Sheriff is going to, be huge for them, I think.
Yeah, now you got off to a winning start on Saturday as well, and this was on the live TV TG Cahir game, so you beat Treaty United 2-0, and in the build-up it's a match of narratives in a certain sense, with Sean Russell going back to face the team he coached previously, and then at the same time Laurie Ryan, who is one of the heroes of the league from an Athlone point of view, this is her opportunity now to put a stamp on Treaty United, and it was going to be intriguing anyway, even from that point of view, even before kickoff.
Yeah, and obviously for Sean it might have been probably a bit awkward. But look, he wasn't at Treaty for years and years. Like, he was only there done the senior team he didn't even finish out the season. So I think people probably tried to make it out bigger than it was. But look, even in our off season, like, Sean obviously came in and made a lot of changes, so probably put a bit of pressure on himself, a lot of eyes on himself in that way as well. So I'd say it was probably more feeling pressure from that side of, we were a completely new looking team, 6 new players in our starting 11. So I think that's probably a bit where a bit more pressure came. And obviously Laurie then, she wants to have a good start for season, so we knew it was going to be a really tough game given all them factors. But look, I think we got the job done. I think we haven't won our opening game the last 2 seasons, so for us it was huge to just get the win whatever way we had to, because often it's a game you look back on and think, if we had just won that first game we could have been in a much better position. So getting a win was huge for us, and like I was saying, our new signings now, they really stepped up to it. And like Maya Sanchez makes a great save at 0-0. That's a crucial moment in the game for us. And look, I do think we were the better team and deserved to win it, but there definitely was moments at 0-0 where it could have went either way for both teams. So Maya steps up, makes a great save, and even our first goal then, it's Aoife Kelly scores a cracking goal, and it's kind of a combination of the 3 new signings. It's a ball in, Bree wins the header, Becky then gets a second ball and sets Aoife Kelly up. So a great goal for her, great start for her, and then obviously Becky Watkins then, another crucial moment for us, just killing the game off, which is probably something we didn't really do last year, where we had momentum in games, we were on top and just didn't take chances, didn't kill games off. So that was nice to see us then.
And Becky had hit the crossbar already, hadn't she? So there had been a kind of warning sign for Treaty there.
Yeah, and look, even last week against Athlone, Becky, she missed a great chance at 0-0, and that was kind of weighing on her. She took a lot of responsibility for the loss of that game. So great for her to get off the mark. And I think even, like you said, hitting the crossbar, even that gave her a lot of confidence. So I think then to get her actual goal, it's going to be huge for her and just kind of lifts the weight off her.
Yeah, and the absence of goal line technology. So in the first half, Treaty United, there was a moment, and it was hard to tell, even looking at the replays, whether the ball actually crossed the line or not, because the whole of the ball has to cross the line. So it was a bit unclear, but they obviously would have been maybe slightly disappointed on that.
Yeah, and look, to be fair, on the actual day, I thought it was in. It looked like it was in, but it's hard to tell. It's a big scramble, but I watched it back a couple of times as well. It's kind of hard to tell. It probably, I think Treat might feel a little bit hard done by it. It does look like it does go over the line, but look, it's hard to tell for Lions people as well, where it's a big scramble, there's people in your way. It is a hard one. It's probably, maybe is it easier to not give it because it's a bit of a safer one, but I think we might have got away with one there, to be honest. Yeah,
and from a Treaty United point of view, how did Madison McGuane get on? Because I know, at the start of this season, you did talk a bit about her being potentially down the line, someone that could work her way into an Ireland squad in the very, in the longer term future.
Yeah, and look, it's probably not too far away, to be honest. She was excellent again against us, and she's only 16 years of age. Like, it's unbelievable how good she is. Played centre mid, and all of her good play was coming through her. She really is a special talent, and definitely someone who has a huge future ahead of her. And look, I'd imagine a lot of clubs would be interested in her. We tried to sign her, but look, she's just too young at the moment, I think, to be moving away from home. So look, maybe in the summer, you never know, but definitely she has a huge future ahead of her.
Yeah, and obviously we've talked a bit about that bridge between the under-19s and the seniors. It seems, just from the FAI briefing I was at last week, that in terms of, from a UEFA perspective, I think they're not really looking at under-23s. They'll be under-21s, which might be an interesting bridge for her if that does come in the medium term.
Yeah, and I think it will be 21s. That's the way UEFA are going. And yeah, look, it is for the likes of her, and there's other young players around the league as well that will do a jump from 19s to seniors, and it's huge, and it's been spoken about quite a lot lately, and it is coming down the road. It's just how quickly we can get it in, but it is crucial for these young players who are such high potential, but are they missing out on 2 or 3 years where they could play international football. So look, it is coming, definitely. It's just obviously the sooner the better.
Yeah, and you were in action yourself. You came on around minute sort of 70 for Alex Kavanagh. So I suppose from your point of view, it's just shoring things up, bring that level of experience.
Yeah, experience. I'm usually called old, but now I'm experienced, which is a nice word. I think it was kind of getting a bit loose in the middle, and games kind of naturally go that way as well. So that's kind of my job now, to come on and just shut up shop, basically, just close people down, get in the way. So that was the brief I got on going onto the pitch. So yeah, look, that's a crucial moment where they're just throwing everything at the game to try and get something out of it, and we have to protect our 2-goal lead. It's always a bit of a tricky one, 2-goal, because you think we can afford to concede a goal, but when you do, or if you do, it's
a momentum shifter.
Completely shifts, yeah. So it is important to keep that clean sheet. But like I said, great for us, 2-0 win. It's a perfect start for us.
Yeah, and it's the exact same scoreline for Shamrock Rovers at Cork City. And I suppose from James O'Callaghan's point of view, the fact that a player that was already in the squad got on the score sheet before that, Sive Doyle, who he's brought in from Peamount, also got on the score sheet. So it's sort of a perfect day in essence. Yeah,
and look, going away from home to Cork, it's not an easy first game. I know Cork probably had a poor season last year, but I always find in the opening games it's always a really tough game. Like, everyone's so excited to get going, everyone's up to the level, so a tough place to go, and like us, a good 2-0 win, it's probably the perfect way to win. But I do think they're going to push a lot more this year. They finished 5th last year, which for a club like Shamrock Rovers, obviously in the men's side they're huge. They're going to want their women's side to kind of replicate that. So I think they've obviously really made a push for it this year, signing LOI is a big statement signing. So I think they'll definitely be up there a lot better than they were last year.
Yeah, is it too early to tell at this stage whether they're sort of on a level where they're a bit closer to yourselves or Athlone at this stage?
Look, I think they are. Look, the hardest thing about winning the league is consistency. It's not going and playing away to Athlone and putting in a great performance. It's away to Treaty, it's away to Cork. They're the ones where you really kind of find out whether you're cut out to win a league or not. So that's probably where Rovers last year, again, it's the games, it's the consistency that's hard. So they definitely have the 11 to do it. Like, LMLI is a huge addition. Sive Doyle, Amanda Budden, they're a really new look team as well, same as ourselves. So they definitely have the potential to do it. It's, you know, whether you can be consistent or not. And obviously LOI is leaving. I think it's like 6 weeks she's going to America for. So like that could prove to be a crucial time where she's gone missing. If they have a bit of momentum and they have 6 tough games, it could be, you know, really detrimental to them.
Yeah, Ella Kelly was somebody you wanted to highlight as well as a younger sort of up and coming player.
Yeah, and she's probably someone that we haven't really spoken about when we've highlighted younger players. But Ella Kelly's up there as well. She's part of our under 19s squad at the moment. She's, you know, I actually worked with her on the transition year course last year, and like her attitude is just completely spot on. Every session was 100%. What can I get out of this session? She tried her best and everything. So, you know, on that side of stuff, she's definitely has a big future ahead of her. She'll be the best player she can possibly be. But last year, I think, was her first year in the league, and, you know, kind of, you know, finding herself developing. But this year, she's kind of stepped up and she showed a few glimpses of that against Cork in the game. But she's definitely one for the future, a good left winger. You know, great engine on her, great attitude. She'll definitely go far as well.
And in terms of the future for those, you know, those transition year courses, I suppose they have been vital in the past for players. How's that looking sort of in the future at this stage?
Yeah, well, look, we obviously run one with Fingal, and look, that won't be continuing, but there is a lot of them that are setting up kind of independent ones. So I don't think it's a case where it's not going to be an option for any players anymore. But look, it's brilliant for them. They come in, they train every day, they do their school every day, and like we've seen from like to come in September, and they're completely different players when they leave in May. So they're, you know, it is great for them to get that exposure to so much football. But it's like anything, you only get out what you put in. And look, there is some players that come in and just, you know, they don't put the effort in. And then there's the likes of Nella Kelly, like Ava Brennan done one. We have some good young players, Caoimhe O'Brien on it now this year, who are really apply themselves, really get the most out of it. And for the likes of them, it's going to be hugely beneficial.
Yeah, and then Peamount and Bowes, who finished 6th and 7th last year, only separated by a point in 2025. A 2-2 draw in their game, but which I suppose exciting in some ways, but I imagine their managers will be disappointed with the way they conceded their goals.
Yeah, I think the two teams, the 2 second goals they conceded were really disappointing. Like the Peamount one, I think it's Maeve Russell on it. Look, I've done it myself before. You look up and you play the ball, and you look up again, there's all of a sudden a Bowes player there that you've never seen before. So look, it does happen, but unfortunately for me, she just plays it straight into Sarah McKevitt. Look, it's an easy finish for her in the end, but to just give a team such an easy opportunity is so disappointing. But look, they came back, you know, got the 2-2 draw, but on the other side, I think Bowes will be conceded with that second goal as well, and it's probably similar to the Emma Hansbury one. Same kind of ball in. It's a bit of miscommunication. I think Rachel Kelly leaves for Lisa Morphin. She does the same, and then Mary Phillips is just on the end of it to finish it off. But look, I think Bowes and the quality of Rachel Kelly, and, you know, it's out of character for her to do something like that. I think she'd probably look back and think she'd be disappointed, because she's much better than that. Yeah,
just on Sarah McKevitt as well at 27, but has been in the league for a very long time. I think she started Peamount back in 2015, but so that would have been kind of a meaningful sort of brace for her as well.
Yeah, and she's one of them. It's kind of like Alex Kavanagh. You forget how young they are because they're around so long. But she was a great player for Bowes last year as well, and she will be this year as well. And probably something that doesn't get maybe headlines or a lot of the attention, but, you know, she's definitely always one of their players that are up there, and we always highlight her when we're playing against as well as someone to watch. So no, she's definitely one of the talented players around the league.
Yeah, and then Galway United 1-0 winners at DLR Waves. Galway will have ambitions as well, and Isabella Beltic with the goal. Probably no surprise it came from a set piece, given looking at the highlights across that match. It seemed to be set piece after set piece after set piece for Galway, where they were threatening consistently.
Yeah, it didn't look like DLR were threatening too much, and they're probably a team that maybe, you know, might struggle again this year. They don't seem to have made, you know, amazing signings. They don't seem to attract the best of players. But on the other side, Summer Lawless is new in there, and she, only for her, you know, could have been a much higher scoreline. She made some great saves in the game, but it did feel like, you know, Galway were definitely banging down the door. It was coming, and once they got that first goal, that was all they were going to need. So look, Galway, another team that are going to want to see themselves as being up there challenging for a league again. Same with Rovers, they'll have the team to do it. It's about the consistency now, but like I said, opening weekend, it's just about getting your result. It's getting the score. You're getting your 3 points no matter how you do it, and that's what they've done. So look, I think they'll be the same as they have been in years past, where they're up there and challenging. It's again just the consistency that. But look, they've made some good signs. They've obviously got Amanda McQuillan from us, who's a great keeper. She might make a difference to them. So look, they'll definitely. It's always one of our toughest games, and I know their teams feel the same. So I think this year will be similar.
Yeah, and then Waterford and Wexford, which was the final game of the of Saturday to mention. And on paper, when you look at a 0-0 draw, you kind of think nothing happened, but quite a lot did in this game.
Yeah, I've never seen so many chances in a 0-0 game. But look, it was chances for both teams. Wexford probably coming away. I think they were probably going to go into that game thinking this, we can get 3 points here, and they probably should have. Look, Waterford had great chances in the game.
Maria Sullivan was very busy in that game.
Yeah, exactly. She made a great save. She tipped one over the bar, saved the penalty. Lauren Dwyer cleared one pretty much off the line. So, Waterford definitely had their chances, but I think Wexford's coming away will think we really should have won that game. They'd great, Megan Lynch had a header off the crossbar. There's a couple of balls into the box that if Wexford player had been on the end of or in a better position, would have finished it. And there was, I think, the best chance of the game was around the 60th minute, and the ball came in. And then it was just at the back post, and I think Emma Bucci was at the back, and it was like she probably wasn't expecting it to come through. It was one of them, and just, you react late on, and she just hits it wide. But look, they had great chances to win the game. Waterford probably feel the same, but I think coming away from that, I think Wexford will be disappointed they haven't gone there and got 3 points.
Yeah, and before we go, there's an interesting piece by Owen Cowser of the Irish Sun on attendances, and this was as part of his season preview for 2026, and he mentioned how total attendances went up in the league because Waterford joined last year, bringing the number of teams up to 12, but the average attendance has actually dropped from 323 to 273 last year. So not a massive drop, but a drop nonetheless on average. The target is to grow that figure by 50% from 2099, and the FAI has recruited a staff member to their communications department whose focus will be on the women's Premier Division. And it brings me back to a conversation we had last year about the attendances at Tolka Park and how you were looking to grow them. You actually got 500 or thereabouts at the weekend, and that was based off kickoff times. Obviously, you kicked off a little bit earlier this Saturday, but was that more of a TV related decision?
Yeah, once it's on TG Car, I think they pretty much pick the kick-off time. But look, 500, that's a decent crowd for us. But look, we've obviously changed our kick-off time to 4 o'clock to try and get more people in. It's helped a bit. We've a great woman, Kristen Sample, who's our community officer, and she does a lot of work to try and get people into games. But it is something that we've obviously identified and something we've probably done before. It's where you're kind of focusing on one game and let's get a record attendance and get as many people we can in for this one certain game, and you put on all these, fan engagement things. But we found that you might get it, you'll get your record crowd, but they don't come back the next week or the week after. So we've focused now to getting a good, consistent crowd for every week. And what was great to see at Airgam on Saturday was actually there was groups of young boys at the game, which is something that we've never really kind of had before. And I'd say even previously, boys probably would have been nearly being embarrassed to kind of ask their friends to go to see a women's match with them, but that wasn't there. There was groups of young boys. The boys team played at half time. I seen getting a picture at the end. They did time of their lives. So I think that stigma's kind of gone out of it, which is great. And that was a case of just Chris going into an all boys school and putting a session on for them, making them aware that the game was on at the weekend, and then they came. So maybe it's an area that we don't target. We always kind of seem to focus on getting young girls into games and girls teams or women's teams, where it's probably a target there for getting young boys in as well. So that's where we've gone down. They've created it's a loyalty card this year for under 18s, where they were handed out on Saturday, and there's a unique sticker for each game that they attend to. And if they get up to say it's 5-10 games, they get a free scarf or a free hat out of the shop. So they were all loving them. So they'll be collecting them every week now. So it could be an initiative another club to use. But look, I think it does fall down to us as players as well, that we need to be putting on the best show we can. We need to be putting on entertaining games, because it's great and get people into the doors, but if we're not putting on good games, they're not going to stay, and rightly so. So I think ultimately it comes down to us as the players. Can you be in the best shape you can be? Can you put on the best performance you can? Entertaining games. We need competitive games. We need all clubs and teams to be as competitive as they can be. We need to show our passion for it, how much it means to us. That goes down into the crowd. So look, there is all these great things about getting people into crowds and through the gates, but I think as players we need to take a lot of responsibility of where we're putting on really entertaining games.
And is there low-hanging fruit within the league? I think 10 of the clubs have a sort of a men's section, or at least share the name with a men's team. And obviously from Michelle's point of view, it is Shelbourne Football Club, whether it's men's or women's. In terms of the low-hanging fruit of getting those and with growing attendances on the men's side, how easy is it sort of trying to get more of those, kind of thinking in terms of I'm a fan of the club as a whole, both in terms of both sections of the club?
Yeah, and look, we do have a core group of people and fans who are hardcore men's fans, hardcore
Women's
women's
fans,
teams
yeah.
fans.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I do think the feel of our games is a lot different to a men's feel, whereas ours is a more family friendly. And even I was saying the young boys that come,
Yeah.
they probably go to the men's game as well, but it's a case you go, you sit in your seat and like don't cause trouble. If there's any fights, you leave. But if they're coming to our games, you kind of can roam around the stadium a bit. It's a bit more freedom, and there's never going to be any trouble at our game. So if they travel in groups, if they're young teenagers, they can, their parents can send them off to the game. We kick off early, they'd be home before it's dark. So there is that case of maybe targeting younger people coming to our games. And I think for the likes of the men's games, it is a more kind of, probably a lot more passion in games. There's, a lot more back and forth between fans, which look is brilliant. I love going to the games, but I think in terms of our game, it's not there just yet anyway. So I think targeting people who are more like looking for a family friendly kind of feel, they're definitely ones that we can target.
Yeah, and I suppose a final point as well, we had the success of the national team back in 2023 in terms of going to a World Cup. They're still going well at the moment, and they're obviously in League A and that. Have you felt that there's been sort of a bit of a knock-on impact from, and maybe the one issue being there aren't enough maybe players from the domestic league in the national team, and maybe that is one area where maybe there would be a positive knock-on effect if there was in terms of the Irish team.
Yeah, look, that's probably a selling point we had a few years ago where it's you can come see your senior international players.
Yeah, the
playing on
Ollie
a weekend.
O'Gormans, etc. Yeah.
But look, that seems to be gone now, and I don't know if it'll come back. Maybe one or two, but it won't be a consistent thing. But I think, look, it'll always be positive. If young girls are going to watch Ireland play and we can qualify for a World Cup, they might think, I want to be that one day. I want to be there, and you can't get there unless you play football. So it could be a knock-on effect where they go and join a team, and then they'll come watch, us play on a weekend. It might not be internationals, but we're there, we're doing it as well, and it's a pathway for them to get up to a senior international team. So look, it'll definitely be a positive, yeah, but we're probably never going to get that again where you can come see your senior internationals play in Tolka Park or in Tallaght Stadium or in Dalymount. I think them days are probably gone.
Yeah, hopefully we see attendances grow. Of course, next week attendances for Ireland fans that are going to be in Prague. I think it's only about 1,000 that can actually get into the venue, but the attendance overall in Prague will be something like 6,000 Irish people. So we will be building up to that next week. But for now, Rachel, thanks very much for your time, and slán go fóill.